Hello, rich ones. Welcome to our space. My name is Christine Ishampepe, the money mechanic, and I help you fix your finances. I am on a mission to equip Africa's younger population with adequate financial literacy, advice, and strategy so they can journey to financial freedom and live life purposefully on their own terms and to the fullest because money is no more a barrier. I want you to live your best life. The Hot Money Talks podcast is a series of honest, open, and transparent money conversations that will guide you on your journey to financial freedom. Here on the podcast, we believe 100% that financial freedom is possible with the right set of knowledge, the right amount of time, and the right circle of people. On today's episode, we will be talking about budgeting, what it is, what methods we can use, what should go into our budget, how to deal with slip-ups in budgeting, and general budgeting advice. Let's begin, shall we? Now, what is budgeting? I like to define budgeting as having a plan for your money. Having a plan for your money. Many times, a lot of people see budgeting as a very restrictive measure, right? So they're like, why should I budget? I mean, it's my money, right? Budgeting is so stressful. I hear people say things like, now who get money, they budget. Or now rich people, they budget, and so on. Budgeting is simply having a plan for your money. It is simply being able to say, I have X amount of money, and this is how I am going to use X amount of money. Yeah, it's that simple. And I've come to understand that budgeting is actually a form of accountability when it comes to your money. And accountability is such a very vital thing, when dealing with finances. One way to be able to get your finances right is to be willing to be accountable with your finances. Now, why is budgeting so important? And I would like to share with us 4 reasons why budgeting is so important. The first reason is it makes you organized. Makes your finances, your life organized. Secondly, it gives you control over your money. So instead of your money to have control over you, with budgeting, you're able to set control measures as to how your money is spent. So, when we don't budget, right, this is what happens. You are left wondering where your money went to. But with budgeting, you're able to tell your money where you want it to go without having to wonder where it has gone to. So it gives you control over your money. Thirdly, budgeting actually reduces your stress levels, to be honest. You are less stressed when you budget. You are actually less stressed when you budget. And then fourthly, with budgeting, you're able to pay your bills on time and also regulate your spending. Now, I'd like to share with us 3 budgeting methods, 3 very common budgeting methods. And I would always say that there is no one-size-fits-all style to budgeting, right? We all have different income levels. We're all at different income levels. Income comes to us differently. Some, gets a bulk salary at the end of the month. Some who are entrepreneurs like us and business owners, money does not come at once. It's kind of sporadic in nature, and all of that. And we all have, different needs, different wants, and so many other things. Our lives are basically different. We're all on different journeys. And so you're not going to hear me say, oh, you must use this method. But I will explain all 3 methods, and then you could find what works for you. So the first one is the very common one I'm sure you've probably heard about, the 50-30-20 rule. So the basic thing about the 50-30-20 rule is that you are dividing your finance into 3 parts. So 100% of your money is divided into 50%, 30%, and 20%. And usually this is the partition. It is usually partitioned in this way, that 50% goes to your needs, 30% goes to your wants, and then 20% goes to things like savings, paying back loans, and for those who are people of the faith, paying your tithe, right? So basically what this means is that when an amount comes into your account, so say you receive 50,000 naira as a salary or 100,000 naira as a salary, when this whole money comes in, you divide it into 3 parts, 50%, 30%, and 20%, and then you use it according to your needs, your wants, and savings slash debts slash your tithe and giving and all of that. Now, usually I would say if you're someone who gets a steady salary, the 50-30-20 rule may just be great for you, right? Now, the second budgeting method, this is zero-based budget. So with the zero-based budget, what you're basically doing is you're canceling everything out. Okay, let me make this more easy to understand. With the zero-based budget, you assign every naira to something. So you no get money where no get use. You understand my point, right? There's no leftover money. There's no money that's just hanging around. Every naira, every kobo goes to something. So that's what I mean by you cancel everything out. So from 1 naira to 10,000 naira, every naira has a use. Okay, so you max out your money. So you assign everything. So if you have 10,000 naira, you assign 1,000 naira to something specific until the 10,000 naira is maxed out. I hope this makes sense. Then the third budgeting method is the envelope budget. Now, the envelope budget is something that really, really helped me, especially when I was in the university, and when I was in law school as well. The envelope budget method really, really helped me. And I would recommend this to anyone who struggles with, seeing a lot of money in your accounts, right? Maybe you're one of those people that almost, if you just see money for your account, they spend them anyhow. And you want to try and learn some kind of discipline with your finances. I recommend the envelope budget method to you. I also recommend this to students as well because this helped me a lot. So how does the envelope budget work? Now, this is basically the way it sounds, the envelope budget. You actually get envelopes, right? And then you tag them, you assign them to the various things on your budget, if I put it that way. So with the envelope budget, you assign money to your expenditures, then you withdraw cash, you divide it among the envelopes, and then you use appropriately. So let me just share how I used to do it when I was in university, right? So when I was in uni, I got a set of envelopes, obviously, and I divided them into the, my basic core things that I used to, need money for monthly. I had pocket money, so I assigned. So of course, when the pocket money comes in bulk, right, this is what I do. I withdraw everything, but before I withdraw, I sit down and I write a budget, which we'll talk about later, and then I withdraw all the money, and then I assign them to every envelope. So the first envelope could have like offerings. So for me, I prioritized giving offerings at church. So I would actually set aside the amount for offerings for that month, put in that envelope. Then money for transportation, put in another envelope. Then my pocket money, like this is money that I spend on a weekly basis on like buying stuff, all of those things. Now partition it into the 4 or 5 weeks of that month and put it in an envelope. And any other thing, shopping as well, had its own envelope. So I'll divide the pocket money as it comes into all of these envelopes. Then I spend appropriately. So when I do this, many times I leave hardly next to nothing in my bank account. So I'm able to regulate my spending. So I know that it is what is inside this envelope that we are going to survive on this month somehow, right? So that really instilled discipline inside of me, and I took this envelope method with me even to law school, and it really, really helped me. Now, we've talked about 3 budgeting methods, right? Now let's go into what should actually your budget comprise of. What should your budget comprise of? But before that, I think at this point, I would like to just address the issue of needs and wants. Now, you must understand that when it comes to spending your money, your needs must always come first. Your needs must always come first. And what are needs? Needs are basically the things that are necessary to your survival. Things that are necessary to your survival. We're talking shelter, we're talking clothing, we're talking food, we're talking transportation, things that are very necessary to your survival. Then, of course, because we live in an age where communication is so key, communication also becomes a part, becomes a need, right? So you must understand the difference between needs and wants, because if you do not understand the difference between needs and wants, you will find yourself spending money on things that are not necessary. So wants are things that you can do without. For me, if I want to identify a want, right, I ask myself, will I die if we don't have this thing? You get? I know that's extreme, but you get my points, right? Wants are things that you can make do without. You can postpone. You can get later. right? They're not necessary right now. Like, you must not have them. They're not life and death. They're not crucial emergencies, okay? So your needs must always come first. You must always prioritize your needs. I just wanted to put that out there. Okay, so what should your budget comprise of? Now, I'm going to share a list of things that I believe your budget should comprise of. The first thing your budget should comprise of is saving. Like, you should budget to save. Many of us don't do that. I think in episode 2, two episodes ago on the podcast, when I talked about saving, one of the tips I gave for saving is that you include saving as part of your budget. Like, put it in your budget. When you want to spend your money, actually say, this is how much I'm assigning to my savings account. So, budgets to save, if you get my points, right? So saving should be a part of your budget. And under saving, you could be saving for your emergency fund, you could be saving for investment, you could be setting money aside to also pay debts. Whatever it is, saving should come as part of your budget. And I believe that actually it should be the first thing on your list. Then secondly, of course, food. Food should be included in your budget because this is necessary to your survival. Then, of course, if you live alone, you have bills to pay, light and water bills, utility bills. These are things that should come in your budget. Then toiletries should also be included in your budget because these are things you use to take care of yourself, okay, as a human being. Then transportation. So it could be fuel, it could be you budgeting to buy fuel, to buy diesel, or just using general public transport. However it is, transportation should go into your budget. Then, of course, I believe, especially if you're a person of faith, that tithe and goodwill offering should also go into your budget. Then, another thing that should go into your budget is rents. Why? Because when we're trying to define what needs are, we said shelter is one of them. So you should plan for your rent. And I can't stress this enough. I've talked about this, on my Facebook page and my Instagram page. I've talked about the importance of rent. Rent is not an emergency. Whether house rent or office rent or shop rent, rent is not an emergency, and we must stop treating it like it is an emergency. Many times we treat rent like it is an emergency, and so it is last minute when we're like at the tail end of everything. When our rent is like due in a couple of days, then you see us running helter-skelter, to get our rent. So rent is not an emergency and we must not treat it as so. So rent should be a part of your budget. And then if, for example, you're a family person, you have fees to pay for children and they may be engaged in extracurricular activities, it should also go into your budget. So again, school fees is not an emergency. Then, like I said, we're in the age where communication is paramount. So data and airtime should go into your budget. If you use outsourced services like laundry, you have a gate man, you have a house help, you have a driver, those expenses, salaries should go into your budget. Then insurance. I know not many of us actually utilize insurance a whole lot, especially in Nigeria, but this is something that actually should be an intentional part of your budget and your lifestyle. So health insurance, car insurance, very, very important. And to make this intentional, you should include it in your budget. Then loan repayments, which I actually lumped under savings at the beginning. You should actually plan for it. Many times people take loans, and the reasons why they are unable to pay or why they don't pay is because they don't plan. They don't have a plan to pay back, right? It's just vibes. It's just vibes when they collect the loan. But loan repayment should actually be something you actually plan for. Then, of course, wants, which I'm mentioning as the last thing, things like going on vacation, eating out, treating yourself to a massage, and all of that. Wants, of course, should be included in your budget. Now, let's talk about some additional tips. I think before I'll talk about dealing with slip-ups in your budget, let's talk about some additional tips when it comes to budgeting. I would say that the way to begin budgeting is to first of all actually know what exactly do I spend on a monthly basis. Like, what exactly are my expenses as a person, right? You need to be able to know and identify. Track your expenses. No, this is what I spend. This is where I would even usually advise that if you're even someone that does more of transfers and all of that, go and get your bank statement and look through your bank statement and see what exactly am I spending a lot more money on. What can I reduce cost, from my budget? What can go from my budget? What am I spending so much on that I don't need to be spending so much on? Things like that. Then, of course, you should also know your income. How much do I actually earn on a monthly basis? How much actually comes into my pocket on a monthly basis? Is it actually commensurate with my level of expenditure? Very, very important. Then, like I said, know your needs and your wants. Very, very, very important. Be able to identify and know what is a priority to you when it comes to spending. Then, see what you can cut off. By the time you're able to identify your expenditure, you'll be able to know, maybe that Netflix subscription is really not necessary at this point in time. Or maybe I actually cannot even afford that DSTV subscription. So, you have to be real with yourself. And then see if you can buy in bulk. I always say that buying in bulk is not for rich people, for people who plan, and for people who have foresight, right? A lot of people don't believe in buying in bulk. And when Kasala bursts, you go see some people no get food for house. That thing happened a lot in COVID. Families who were not used to buying in bulk, who used to buy food on a daily basis, they come and buy one measure of rice, cook tomorrow, they now go and buy one loaf of bread. It really affected them because when we were unexpectedly locked down, many people did not have food to last them 1 to 3 days before the lockdown was lifted. If you plan properly, you can actually buy in bulk. Then when it comes to budgeting, write everything down. Write everything down. Don't assume you can remember everything or you figure it out in your head. Write everything down. Then, like I said, budget to save. Budget to save. Now, let's talk about dealing with slip-ups in your budgeting routine. So, you're trying so hard though, but nobody's perfect, right? And so, when you slip up, what do you do? The first thing is forgive yourself. We all make mistakes. Nobody is perfect, right? And you shouldn't be looking out for perfection, just consistency and intentionality, right? So forgive yourself. Then secondly, retrace your steps and see where you missed it. So this is where you identify what made you to actually go overboard in your spending. Sometimes it actually may not be your fault. Life can just happen, right? Unexpectedly. So at this point, you ask yourself, how can I deal with such slip-ups next time? Then thirdly, you must understand and remember that budgeting is a process. And so, please remember that you cannot always have a perfect budget, but you can try. Always aim for perfection. Then if you're a beginner budgeter, track where your money is going to so you know where to make adjustments. And finally, remember that the only budget that works is the one you look at. So shine your eyes. There's this common saying that out of sight is out of mind. So write that budget down. Now, go out there and budget. Superstar. All right. Thank you for listening. I hope this episode has been helpful in some way. And if you found value today, please share the link to this episode with your circle. Remember that new episodes of the Hot Money Talks podcast drop every Saturday, and you can listen to them on your favorite podcast platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Do well to follow the show on either of these platforms so that you are notified whenever an episode is released. Recommendations are powerful, so please tell your friends and your family about this podcast so we can go on this journey together. To connect with me on other platforms, do well to follow The Money Mechanic at The Money Mechanic page on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. I hope most importantly that you will take action on your finances today. Sending you love, light, and a sprinkle of money in between.